This is your 2017 WWE Elimination Chamber Review, which is sponsored by Rock Bottom Phone Cases and Accessories. Offering high-quality phone cases at rock-bottom prices for a limited time, you can get 10% off your purchase of $9.99 or more when you use the coupon code Solomonster at checkout. Just go to rockbottomcases.com. Free shipping on everything, and you pay no sales tax. You're already getting bargain prices. Use our code and get a few extra bucks off. Just go to rockbottomcases.com. Never overpay for phone accessories again. And shout out to Rock Bottom Cases, too, for supplying a free phone case to one of the winners in our Royal Rumble pool. So shout out to them for that. WWE Elimination Chamber from the Talking Stick Arena in Phoenix, Arizona. Just ended a few minutes ago. Already some poll results here. From the poll I threw up on Twitter, at Solomonster. A little over 500 votes in so far. It's still very early. 78% thumbs up, 22% thumbs down for what I thought was a very good show. Not an excellent show. Excellent main event, for sure. But very good overall. Shout out to Armando in our Facebook group for getting his Solomonster Sounds Off sign on the air at the very beginning of the pay-per-view. That is the second Sound Off sign spotted on TV today alone. Shout out to Endo and Raph, who got their sign on the What Culture iPay-per-view earlier. Sound Off Worldwide. Thank you, guys. One of the highlights of the night actually came on the pre-show, and we almost didn't see it. Thanks to Booker T, we did. JBL. Now, of course, JBL, a few weeks ago on SmackDown, they did the King's Court segment with Dolph Ziggler, and Dolph ended up super kicking Jerry Lawler in the chest. This greatly offended JBL, who tried to get up and come to the rescue of the King, and as we all know, he tripped and fell. Because they have about 13 different announcers at ringside, and so he tripped over one of the headset cords, and it was very embarrassing, and ended up on Botchamania, thankfully. And so, you figure one and done, it happens, right? People fall. Well, nobody would have known about this had Booker T not have gotten hysterical laughing on the pre-show, pointing out that while they were away showing something else, JBL came out to head down to the announce booth. He was doing the old Texas two-step, and he tripped over his own 2 feet and fell down. So, good to see Trip Bradshaw back on TV here. He fell down for the second time. We may have to get this guy a walker from now on so he doesn't break a hip. But the kickoff match was Mojo Rawley against Curt Hawkins. I thought this was, it's Mojo Rawley against Curt Hawkins. What do you expect? But it was meant to be a showcase for Mojo. That's what it was supposed to be. That's what it was. I thought he looked good. He got the win with a Tilt-A-Whirl Power Slam. He looked good. I mean, it was actually one of the better Mojo Rawley matches I've seen. He's improving. He's getting better each time I see him. And again, I said this on the podcast that, it sucks what happened to Zack Ryder, but you've got to use this as an opportunity. And I think he's getting the chance as a single star now to run with the ball and see how far he can go with it. The people like him. I mean, he's over. The people like him. He's got the energy. And, watching him on Talking Smack talk about his background and how he got into wrestling and his days in football and everything. I mean, he's got a compelling story. And so I think if he can put it all together in the ring as a wrestler, because they kind of plucked him out of NXT a little too quick, if he could put the whole thing together, then he's got some real potential. And let's face facts here. I mean, they brought in a guy like Curt Hawkins. And by the way, I just said face the fact. That was a complete coincidence talking about Curt Hawkins. I know that's his shtick. But it's true. The fact is they brought in guys like Curt Hawkins to help get the newer guys over like a Mojo Rawley. And look, if Shelton Benjamin didn't get hurt, chances are he would have ended up on SmackDown. That was where he was supposed to go, I think. And he would have probably been in the same role. I'm not saying he'd be jobbing out every week, but, you bring in the older guys, not to make them a big star, but to help get the newer guys over. And Hawkins, he serves a purpose there. So the pay-per-view proper began. We had Mickie James opening the show against Becky Lynch. James spent much of the match working over Becky's arm. She was going after her shoulder. I guess that was part of the whole psychology of the match. Becky has the disarmer, and so normally she would work over her opponent's arm. In this case, it was Mickie doing that. The announcers, they spent some time talking about how Mickie, she'd been gone for 7 years, and it took him about 3 or 4 times before one of them, and it was JBL, I think, who finally piped up, and he said, well, look, Mickie hasn't exactly not been wrestling. I mean, she's been competing over these 7 years, just not in WWE. She's been competing all over the world, which includes Florida, I guess, where she apparently spent 7 years on an extended vacation at Magic Kingdom, I guess. Anyway, Mickie got a cut on her elbow. I didn't see how it happened. I just saw the ref put the gloves on, so you knew there was some blood somewhere. Becky went for the armbar. Mickie rolled through and turned it into a pinfall attempt, but Becky reversed that and rolled up Mickie James for the pin. And I have to watch myself here because I said this on the podcast earlier. It's not a roll-up. It's the roll-up. Becky Lynch won with the roll-up. It is the patented WWE roll-up. It is a company specialty. Dolph Ziggler against Kalisto and Apollo Crews. And actually, just going back to that match for a second, that kind of surprised me. I had Mickie winning, but I guess, they want to extend things out between the two of them. Maybe they'll feud going into WrestleMania, so Becky wins the first one, maybe Mickie wins the next one, then they have another one. Sometimes these things can go on for 3 straight pay-per-views, and so maybe that's what we're in for there. Dolph Ziggler against Kalisto and Apollo Crews. Ziggler, he attacked Kalisto from behind as he was making his entrance. He threw him into the LED board, put him out, which made it 1-on-1 against Apollo Crews. Loud chants for Dolph Ziggler, the heel, for injuring Kalisto, the babyface. Again, everything about this whole program has been just completely ass backwards. The booking, the fan reaction, it's like a freaking bizarro world here. Anyway, they had a match. It was kind of dull. Kalisto stumbled back down to the ring about 10 minutes later. Tagged himself in. He ran wild for a little bit on Dolph. Crews got the blind tag at one point, so he grabbed Ziggler. He got him up for the sit-out powerbomb, and he pinned him. So Apollo Crews and Kalisto get the win. The heel could not overcome the odds against the two baby faces. Poor guy. And again, it's just completely ass backwards. I felt bad for Ziggler. I felt bad for Dolph having to go in there against 2 guys, 2 against 1, right? I mean, am I supposed to have sympathy for this guy? Because I did. The fans must have felt the same way, because when the match was over, when Ziggler took out Kalisto again, Apollo chased after him. Ziggler grabbed a chair. He used a chair on him again, and the crowd cheered. He put the chair around his ankle, Apollo's ankle. He Pillmanized him twice. He stomped on it. And then he left to chants of "Thank you, Ziggler." And in the ring, Kalisto finally crawled back in. He kept asking, "What happened? What happened?" It's like, what happened? What happened is your friend got his ass kicked. Trying to defend your dumb ass. You did nothing to help him. If I were Apollo Crews, I'd be turning on him too. He's a terrible friend. We had tag team turmoil for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Heath Slater and Rhino started out against Breezango. Didn't last very long. Rhino hit Fandango with the gore, got the pin. The Vaudevillains were out next. This was very weird because I kind of just assumed that American Alpha was going to start the match. They never actually said that. I just sort of assumed it, so that was a little surprising to me. The Vaudevillains were out next. They took out Rhino. But Heath Slater launched himself from the top rope out to the floor, wiped them both out. Loud chants of "He's got kids." I look forward to the chants of "Fuck your kids" when Brock Lesnar wrestles Goldberg at WrestleMania. Slater ended up pinning Aiden English with the Impaler DDT for the second fall. So they've already wrestled 2 matches. Out next come the Usos. And it was in here somewhere that Mauro Ranallo, for the second time I believe on this pay-per-view, referred to the Elimination Chamber structure as Hell in a Cell. And he got called out for it. This was not his strongest night. Still a better play-by-play announcer than Josh Matthews. I think there was a blind tag in here somewhere. Slater got super kicked right in the face. He got pinned, so the Usos now move on. Out next are the tag team champions, American Alpha, Jordan and Gable. Good action. Anytime the Usos are in there with American Alpha, I mean, they work well together. It's good action. They got now, and as is the case in most American Alpha matches, going back to their days in NXT, they got the heat on Gable, and they worked him over pretty good until Jordan got the hot tag. It broke down after this. Gable pulled the old I should know the name of it. I call it the old Mark Marrow move. That's how I remember it. It was the move that Mark Marrow used on Steve Austin at the King of the Ring in '96 when he busted Austin's lip open, gave him 16 stitches. He basically jumps up, hooks his feet under the arms of his opponent, and brings him backwards for basically a roll-up. He used that on the Usos. He got the pin. But the Usos were not having any of it, and they attacked Jordan and Gable after the fall. They laid waste to both of them. Beat them down for a long time. This beatdown went down for a long time. And they served these two guys up on a platter for the Ascension. And those of us who know better know that the Ascension was not winning this match. They are a dead tag team. They were dead almost from the moment they debuted. And the only reason they gave them that win, they threw them that bone on SmackDown last week, was for this moment, to make you think that they might actually have a chance to win when they never actually did. And still, the Ascension could not get the job done, even with these two guys who were just killed dead. Jordan and Gable fought back, and they hit Grand Amplitude to retain the tag team titles. No revival, which is what I was kind of hoping for. I kind of knew it wasn't happening just because it's very obvious they're setting up a three-way tag team title match for the next NXT show over WrestleMania weekend. It's going to be the Revival, the Authors of Pain, and DIY. So knowing that, seeing the direction they're going in, not that they could not have brought these guys up to the main roster. Look, Kevin Owens came up to the main roster. He was still the NXT champion. He was there for another 2 months. Actually, 3 months, I think. So it's not as though just because guys are in a program in NXT, you can't call them up. I mean, there is a precedent for it, but it was pretty obvious they weren't going to do it, but I was just holding out hope. I just think it would have been such a great spot. It would have been the perfect spot for them to come in as that final team, right? They go through tag team turmoil, 5-6 teams, whatever it is. You think the match is over, but then all of a sudden, the Revival's music hits. You got one more team to go through, and Jordan and Gable, they just can't overcome the odds here, and they lose. And the Revival on night one become the tag champs, and then you have a Revival American Alpha feud going forward. They had a great feud in NXT. And just the idea of those two teams, unless you make it like a big four-way match or something, but those two teams alone having a WrestleMania match, you know those guys are going to pull out all the stops. They're going to go out there, they're going to kick all kinds of ass. But they didn't do it, and American Alpha retains. We had Nikki Bella and Natalya. Early on, Nikki was determined to show Natty that she can wrestle. That was part of the storyline here. Natty was telling Nikki, you can't wrestle, just like your boyfriend. And they ended up outside the ring. Natalya tried to call for a timeout at one point, but she shoved Nikki backwards into the post, which she barely touched, but she sold it anyway. Got real quiet after this. Natalya just beat on her and beat on her and beat on her forever. It just went on, and the people didn't really seem to care. At one point, she had Nikki in a chin lock, and you could actually see Nikki motioning, like with her hand, motioning to the crowd to make some noise, but they didn't. Now, after this, to be fair, it did pick up after this. Natalya hit a superplex. She got Nikki in the sharpshooter, which Nikki reversed into her fearless lock. Is that really what they call it? Is that what it's called? Fearless lock? It sounds kind of ridiculous, but I will say this about it. I said this on Twitter. The fearless lock looks far more devastating than John Cena's STF. She does a better submission than her boyfriend does. Seriously, her version looks more painful than Cena's, the way that she does it. She looked like she was legit choking the life out of Natty. But she reached the ropes, and they spilled outside onto the floor. Neither woman could make it back into the ring in time, and so they were counted out. A double count out, which it felt like such a cheap finish for such a long match. I didn't time it. It felt like 15 minutes. If it wasn't, it had to be close. And for any like longer match to end on a double count out, you know, it's one of those things where I don't think there is a count out finish that isn't lame. So I looked at this and I said, oh man, that's lame. But then I thought about it, and it's like, there are very few count out or double count out finishes that aren't lame. So, you know, I think you were going to feel like that no matter what when this thing was over. But it keeps the program going. I mean, I assume that was what this was designed to do. They didn't want to blow it off tonight, so how do we keep this thing going? You do a draw of some kind, a double count out, a double DQ. I mean, given the heat between the two, I'm thinking a double DQ might have made more sense. But I mean, it was good. I thought the match, it turned into a good match by the end. It was not a little, it was very dead for the first half, but they worked hard. It turned into a good match despite the lame finish. Again, it's hard to do that kind of finish without it being lame, unless you just brawl out into the street. Like if you got two people that are beating the hell out of each other and they brawl to the back and they brawl out into the street, I can excuse that. That's actually a pretty cool double count out finish. And you know what? Given the nature of this feud and how personal it's gotten, maybe they should have. Maybe they should have done that, where they brawl to the back and they brawl out of the building and all that sort of thing. Natty beat up Nikki after the match, walked off, but Nikki speared the hell out of her. She came back and ran towards her in the aisleway, speared her down, had to be pulled off her by the referees. I would say this feud may well stretch all the way to WrestleMania. That's what I was thinking watching this. It's like, okay, well, maybe all these rumors about Cena and Nikki against Miz and Maurice, maybe it's not happening and they're going to drag this out to WrestleMania. But they did plant the seed later on backstage when Natty attacked Nikki, and then she accidentally bumped into Maurice. Maurice just happened to be standing there. She was powdering her face or something, knocked powder all over Maurice. And so they very subtly planted the seed for that mixed tag team match at WrestleMania. Where that leaves Natty, I have no idea. I could see them blowing the feud off on an episode of SmackDown maybe in a few weeks. Yeah, they did that back in December. At the very end, it might have been the last SmackDown of 2016. They built up this one episode of SmackDown like a pay-per-view, and it popped a big number, but they promoted like a couple of big matches in advance, like a week or two in advance, and they made this feel like a big deal. So they could do that. They could take an episode of SmackDown. Look, I think there's one more pay-per-view before WrestleMania. It's a Raw brand pay-per-view, Fastlane. And so SmackDown doesn't have any other big shows. Nothing wrong with taking a SmackDown episode at the beginning of March and promoting it, giving it a theme or a title or something, and promoting it as some kind of special event. And you can blow off the feud on SmackDown. You can even have them main event the show, Nikki against Natty. And maybe, do a no count out match or a no DQ. Actually, you know what? If it were me, I would make it Falls Count Anywhere. I would do Falls Count Anywhere, Nikki Bella against Natalya on SmackDown, let's say in the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And blow it off there. We had Randy Orton against Luke Harper. This was a great match. I enjoyed this. We already know how great Randy Orton can be when he wants to be. But this showed Luke Harper is the real deal. This was the best showcase, I thought, for Luke Harper since he came to WWE. I mean, we've seen him in some good singles matches. I remember the ladder match he had at TLC one year with Dolph. They fucking killed each other in that match. But just like a singles one-on-one match, no gimmicks, no ladders, or any of that stuff, this might well have been Luke Harper's best match in WWE. They just went back and forth, and I know Orton dropped Harper on the announce desk at one point, which did not break. Later on in the match, he did the same to Randy, and back and forth they went. At one point, Harper did a suicide dive. Actually, not a suicide dive. He did... what is it, Suicida? Is that what it is? From the apron into the ring, onto Orton. I mean, he busted out some moves Harper did in this match that, for a big guy, you don't normally see. And it's that sort of thing I was talking about on the full podcast earlier today, that there's a lot about Luke Harper, I think, that people underestimate. Things that a guy his size would not normally be expected to do. Hearing him on SmackDown last week for the first time, really, cutting a promo by himself, speaking as a normal human being. The more of that we get to see, I think the more over this guy is going to get. I think this guy has real big star potential. Maybe not in this gimmick. I still say that over time, you got to get rid of that ratty shirt. You got to maybe shave the beard or trim it or something, but it may not be in this character, in this gimmick, but whether it's a heel or a face or whatever, I do think that at some point, you shake things up with this guy, he'll look like a new man. And he's talented enough where I think he'll do pretty well for himself. But this was a great match. They both held up their own. One guy tweeted me. He said, yeah, well, Randy carried him. That's why it was like, carried him? What are you talking about? Like, are you crazy? I thought they both did a fine job in this match. And towards the end, Harper hit a sit-out powerbomb, got a near fall out of it. Orton hit the RKO out of nowhere, got the pin, And so Randy Orton gets the win heading into the main event, or as I call it, second or third from the top at WrestleMania, because I do not see Orton in the final match that night in Orlando. But they'll call it the main event, because, that's cute. We had Naomi and Alexa Bliss for the SmackDown Women's Championship. First time we've ever had 3 women's matches, singles matches at least, on a single WWE pay-per-view. This one surprised me. This one surprised me more than the others. I called this one all wrong. I think Alexa's been doing a fantastic job. I did not see her dropping the belt before WrestleMania. But in fact, she dropped it here to Naomi. And Naomi is the new SmackDown Women's Champion. She went for her split-legged moonsault. It looked like she hit it, but I guess not. I don't know if it was a botch or what. Because Alexa just got right up. She went up top for Twisted Bliss. Naomi got her knees up, though. And so back up for the split-legged Naomi went. And this time she nailed it. And she got the peen. I sound like Dusty Rhodes now. She got the peen. She got the pin. Clean in the middle for the win. She was in tears afterwards while Renee Young tried to interview her in the ring. Crowd chanted, "You deserve it," and she just lost it. I'm happy for her. I'm really happy for her. She's waited a long time for this. She's gone through some injuries. That new glow entrance that she's got is really cool. That gave her some new life. And she's a good wrestler on top of everything else. I mean, if you ranked them all in this division, she wouldn't be on the top, but she wouldn't be near the bottom. She's a solid wrestler, and now she gets to go into WrestleMania in her hometown of Orlando as the champion. I'm really happy for her. I didn't have a problem with this at all. I mean, again, I like Alexa. I'm a big fan, and I wouldn't have taken the title off her, but that's fine. I'm sure Alexa in due time will get the belt back. They wanted to go for the feel-good moment here, and it was very cool. Main event was John Cena, AJ Styles, Bray Wyatt, Dean Ambrose, Baron Corbin, and The Miz. Elimination Chamber match for the WWE Championship. The 20th Chamber match in WWE history. The new Chamber. Let's talk a little bit about this. They have upgraded the Elimination Chamber. They have changed it. It now looks taller. They said it's 26 feet high. It's not as wide. So it looks bigger, but it's smaller, if that makes sense. It's taller, but not as wide. But I think that may have more to do... I think the reason for this, and I could be completely wrong, but I know one of the issues that they had previously was that a lot of the buildings, a lot of the older arenas, maybe even the newer ones, the newer arenas, there was an issue with holding this thing up. And I don't know if it was the size or the weight, because they still claim it's like 10 tons, so it probably weighs the same. But there was some sort of structural issue where a lot of the buildings just couldn't support it. And I think that was one of the issues, if not the issue, that led to them dropping it, because the Elimination Chamber, they had done away with it, I think, for a little while there. So they also replaced the steel on the outer platform. Remember, they had the steel. People would get backdropped on it all the time. Well, that's gone, or at least it's covered up now by a bunch of mats, which I'm sure the wrestlers are very happy with. In fact, that might have been a request of theirs, because those guys were just getting fucked up, getting backdropped on that steel. That every time somebody would fall or get backdropped on that steel, that looked like it sucked. And so for them, I'm sure it's much better. I like it. I think it looks cool. Maybe it was all the blue lighting. Maybe that was part of it, but I think it looked pretty badass. So Ambrose was out first. He got into one of the pods, followed by Corbin, Miz, and Wyatt. So it was John Cena and AJ Styles to start the match. Ambrose was in next. He went right after Cena. He climbed up on one of the pods, and you could tell it's definitely taller, because he had way more room up there than he would have had they been using the old one. I mean, if you think back to like the original one, and this is probably as much part of the reason why Triple H got hurt as anything. When Rob Van Dam climbed up on one of the pods in the very first Chamber match, and he had to kind of crouch down, he couldn't stand up straight. I think that had a lot to do with the way he came off and crushing Triple H's throat. Now these guys can climb up on top of the pods and they can just stand up straight. And that's what Ambrose did. He dove off onto Cena with an elbow. He got in the ring. He gave AJ Styles I guess I would call it a suplex flip. I'm not sure if there's a technical word for it or a name for it, but it was like, he got him up for a suplex, but just completely flipped him over and right onto his back on the mats. That would have really sucked if they still had the steel out there. As it is, it probably knocked the wind out of the guy. It reminded me, I fell off the monkey bars at the playground once when I was a kid. I'm swinging, and my dad said, all right, let go. I'll catch you. And I let go, and he didn't catch me. And I took a flat back bump, and I couldn't breathe for the next 10 seconds. It knocked the wind out of me. And everyone's looking at me like, are you okay? And he's laughing, and my elbows are all bloody, and I couldn't breathe. And I think people take that for granted when these guys take big bumps like that. It knocks the wind out of you. You got to it takes like 5, 10, 15 seconds. You got to get breath back in your lungs, and it's kind of scary. So I don't envy Styles taking a bump like that. There was another spot where AJ, I think, had Ambrose in a waistlock. Cena came up from behind both of them. He gave them a double German, which looked really impressive. Bray Wyatt was in next. AJ took some crazy abuse through this whole match, but especially here, he and Ambrose were up on top of one of the pods. And now they have that, what do they call it? The Lexan glass, the plexiglass, whatever it is. They love to talk about that. Up top, like when you're standing on one of the pods, it's kind of like a wall of that Lexan glass. You don't have the chains there. It's the glass. And so Ambrose took AJ and kept ramming his head over and over and over again into the glass. And a few minutes after that, he was on the top rope. AJ was, and Wyatt was down in the ring, and Wyatt just sort of flung AJ over his head, and AJ took a header. Thankfully, he rotated on the way down. He took a beating here. Baron Corbin was in next. I thought they really handled Corbin very well in this match. Now, yes, he was the first man of the 6 to be eliminated. That is true. But the time that he was in there, the guy was dominant. He was kicking ass from the moment he stepped out of that pod. Miz was the last one out of the pods, but he didn't want to come out because he didn't want none of Corbin. Corbin standing there, he's like, all right, Miz, come on out. Miz would not come out. And so as Corbin is standing there kind of goading him, waiting for him to come out, Ambrose sneaks up behind Corbin, rolls him up, the dreaded roll-up, and he gets the pin. And so he's the first one gone, but it was, it was on a total fluke. It wasn't like he got laid out by some move and pinned. It was a complete fluke, and then Corbin destroyed Dean Ambrose afterwards, threw him through one of the pods, and the glass broke, and laid him out with the end of days. So, look, Corbin was not winning this match. Baron Corbin was not winning this match. He was not becoming WWE champion. And so I thought, so what do you do, right? The guy's got to lose. How do you do it? How do you book this? And I thought what they did with him was brilliant. I really do. I think they handled him very well. And they did exactly what I said they would do. They planted the seed for the only match that really made sense for Ambrose at WrestleMania. When you look at the SmackDown roster, you think to yourself, all right, who is he going to face? Dean Ambrose, he's the man without a plan here. He's kind of left out of all these big plans. What's he going to do? Well, he's the IC champ. He's got to defend. And so unless you just stick him in a multi-man match, who does he face? By process of elimination, it seemed pretty obvious to me. The guy is Baron Corbin, and that's exactly what they did. They planted the seed here. They had Corbin lay him out, and after what they did here, I'm almost sure that's where they're headed. It had to go down the way that it did, and I thought all of this made sense. Now, Miz, seeing Ambrose's dead body, immediately rushed over. He scored the pin, so now Ambrose was gone. Not only that, I just talked about setting up things with Ambrose and Corbin. They set things up with Cena and Miz for WrestleMania by having Cena eliminate Miz a few minutes later. He pinned him with the AA. Miz didn't beat Cena down. We knew that wasn't going to happen. And he never did come back out. But between what they did earlier with Nikki and Maurice and then this, it's very obvious that that's the direction they're going in for Mania. So get ready. First time since WrestleMania 27. It was so great the first time. Now we get to see Cena and Miz again at WrestleMania. Although I've enjoyed what they've done with Miz, so I really don't mind it. Actually, I think this probably will end up being a better match. It would be very hard, I think, for this mixed tag that they're probably going to do this year at Mania to be any worse than Cena Miz was for a WrestleMania main event. The worst WrestleMania main event, by the way, of all time. Although we did have Triple H and Roman Reigns last year. I got to think about this now. Before last year, I would have said for sure, worst WrestleMania main event of all time, Cena vs. Miz. Now I'm on the fence. I have to think about this. So this left us now with Miz gone. It left us with Cena, Styles, and Bray Wyatt. Cena hit the AA on Wyatt. He went for the AA on Styles, but AJ reversed it, hit the Styles Clash for a near fall. Cena then hit him with an AA for a near fall. And so John Cena sees the lay of the land here. He looks around and he decides, you know what? I'm going to climb up on top of one of these pods because why the hell not? And as he's climbing up there, there's a fan who very audibly yells, "Don't kill yourself, Cena." He almost did. He dove off, and he wiped out both Wyatt and Styles. So Cena takes Bray up for an AA. Bray wiggles out of it. He nails Sister Abigail, and he pins John Cena. Just like that, title reign number 16 comes to an end after just 2 weeks. Vengeance for WrestleMania 30 for Bray Wyatt. So the match was already awesome by this point, but this was just great stuff. From this point on, it was just fantastic. It came down to Wyatt and Styles. Crowd was electric. They were going crazy, even though it was 2 heels in there, but they love AJ. Actually, they love both these guys. They went back and forth, lots of near falls. Styles hit a 450 splash for a near fall at one point. He set up for the phenomenal forearm, but Wyatt caught him for Sister Abigail on the way down and got the pin. Bray Wyatt is your new WWE champion in an excellent main event. One of the better chamber matches they've ever done. I can't sit here and say it's the best because I'd have to really go back and watch. I just don't remember all the different ones they've done. They've had some great ones. I would put this one up there with the greatest that they've had. This was a really well done, very enjoyable chamber match, a satisfying conclusion, a hot finish. It set up multiple programs going forward for WrestleMania, at least 3 of them. So I just thought that they knocked it out of the park with this match. And Bray Wyatt, I mean, you know, from Husky Harris to the WWE Championship, it's been quite the journey for that guy. I'm sure his father is very proud. He never won a world title, but his son has. And Randy Orton walked out in the aisleway. He pulled down the hoodie, and he stared at Bray Wyatt from afar. It will be Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton at WrestleMania. You know, it's very easy to say that, well, this story pays off with Randy Orton winning the championship and, you know, leaving the Wyatt family, although there really isn't much of a family left, I guess. It's really just down to Orton and Bray. It's just 2 guys, but, you know, I don't know. I would not be against keeping the belt on Bray beyond WrestleMania. I don't think Orton has to win the championship at Mania. And who's to say also that they don't end up adding Luke Harper to the match and making it a 3-way? You know, I personally don't really see the need for it. Harper lost tonight. I think if they wanted to add Luke Harper and make it a triple threat, then he should have beaten Randy. Because Randy already had the WrestleMania main event sewed up. So had Harper gone in there and won, it's kind of like when Triple H beat Austin in that 3 Stages of Hell match many years ago, the month before Mania. Austin still went on to Mania, right, to win the championship. So it's not like they haven't done that before. So I'm guessing they don't have that in the plans, or else Harper probably would have won that match tonight. But he didn't win. He lost. He lost to Randy Orton. Had he won, he would have had a legitimate case to be added to that match. But he really hasn't done anything to be added to that match. He really hasn't done anything of note. He hasn't won any big matches lately. So doesn't mean they won't do it, but probably not going to happen. We'll see. But congrats to Bray Wyatt. He earned it. He's been through a lot of shit. Injuries, bad booking. So now he's finally on top of the mountain here. I thought this was a very good show overall. I thought it was a fantastic main event. I thought there was a real good match between Randy Orton and Luke Harper. And a good match also between Alexa Bliss and Naomi. The shock title change, at least the shock for me anyway. That's enough to make this a thumbs up show in my book. And just checking the poll, one final update here before we end. The poll is now up well over 1,000 votes, and we're now up to 83% thumbs up and just 17% thumbs down. So it seems like the overall consensus is pretty much in line with what I just said. Pretty damn good show overall. Next up is Fastlane on March 5th, and then it's WrestleMania 33. I'll be down in Orlando for all the festivities, so Follow along with me on Twitter at Solomonster, and be sure to hit the subscribe button here on this channel for any new videos that may go up while I am down there. And of course, don't forget to check out the full Sound Off podcast, which go up each and every Sunday on the Solomonster.com, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio, among many other platforms. Thank you, as always, for your support of the channel and of the podcast. I will be back very soon with a brand new video, so until next time, be well, stay safe, and we'll see you back here real soon for a brand new extra. Until then, take care, guys.